Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with another podcast this week, number 19, if I'm not mistaken, in the series, number 19 in the Spain, Living in Spain podcast series. Joined again by John. How are you today, John?
I'm good, thanks. My Spaniversary today as well.
Yeah, I saw that you posted that on Facebook. 21 years.
Yeah, 21 years. Nearly half my life. Next year I'll be half Spaniard. Yeah.
Doesn't time fly when you're having fun?
Oh, flies, yeah.
It goes by really quickly. I think I'm coming up to 20 or 21. I've sort of lost count, to be honest. Doesn't really become a statistic anymore, I suppose, the longer you're here. I mean, you keep these things in mind, but...
Yeah. Well, I never really sort of keep... I don't put much importance on it or anything, but my nephew was born the day I arrived in Spain, so I always know how many years I've been here because I know how old he is. So. Yeah,
I've got a similar situation as well. Yeah, the young chap, I think this year he's 20 years old, I think, so... yeah, they're all growing up and getting into the world that is Spain. These little kids, yeah. Childhood's fantastic. Now they're starting to come up against the some of the tougher things in life, like trying to get a job. Especially.
Well, my nephew's absolutely fantastic. He actually got a job with Banco Santander.
Really?
Because we've got a lot of the offices back where I'm from in Milton Keynes, and he was working there.
Oh, he's back in the UK,
yeah,
not
he's back
here.
in the UK.
Okay,
No, he's back in the UK.
Oh, you're not talking about a Spanish?
No. My sister's little boy. Boy's absolutely huge, absolutely massive. He's done fantastic for himself. He's doing something else now, but he did really well. He did an internship and did absolutely fantastic.
With Santander?
He was with Santander, and now he's I don't know if he's moved to different departments or a different group or something, but he's doing really well. He's a very bright kid. Kid, 21. It's like
well, that's it. The only thing I would recommend there was I'd be aware of Banco Santander. That would be my advice to him. Be aware.
That bad, eh?
What?
That bad?
I think it's where you're working in the bank. Yeah, in a bank. If you're working in a branch, obviously nowadays you're in the line of fire, especially here in Spain. You know.
Yeah.
With
everything that's happened, I think the last place I'd want to work right now is probably in a
bank branch. That's it. Yeah. And they seem to be disappearing as well, bank branches. But it's one of those things.
That's all going online now, isn't it? So.
It is all going online. I can't remember the last time I went to a bank, just simply because I don't like going to banks, to be honest. And Banco Santander, which is the bank that I do bank with, it's like walking into a prison. You have to go through
the doors, double doors as well.
Double doors. You can't go in with anything. I mean, it's you're just not welcome. And then when you get
a metal detector, the door opens, you walk in, it's like a metal detector closes behind you and then opens up the other side.
Yeah, it does.
I've never experienced that before in the UK, so it's a new thing to me.
I think that model is changing, but I mean, it's just not a friendly place to go to. That particular bank.
I avoid banks as much as I can. I don't really like going to them either. I think the last 2 times I went to a bank was to close an account. So
that's it.
Actually, last 3 times. 3 times. Yeah, 3 counts.
Now we had a comment here from Maureen, who says, thanks for the information. She asks if she needs a teaching qualification in order to teach here in Spain. Now, it depends what you're going to be teaching. If you're going to be teaching English, there are various qualifications that you can get. I think you can get a qualification called CELTA, and there's another TEFL qualification that you can get. Are they necessary? That's the question.
It depends.
It does.
If you want to teach, in a school, for starters, you've got to go through the whole Spanish system first. You've got to do the oppositions to be able to.
If you want to teach in a Spanish school,
in a Spanish public school.
That's okay. So you have to do the Spanish teaching qualification.
Exactly.
And speak Spanish fluently, probably. As well.
I'd imagine you probably have to, or at least, not necessarily fluently, but I think you'd need to be able to speak sort of half decent level of Spanish. The semi-private schools, or contratados, or however you want to call them, and the private schools, that's a different kettle of fish. I should imagine they'll expect some sort of qualification, but from experience, from people I know, that's not always the case, depending on what you'll actually be teaching and whether you'll be on your own with the kids or whether you'll be teaching as an assistant.
Okay, because that's the big thing, the teaching assistant side. Yeah. But there are private schools in Madrid where you, with a British qualification, with a British teaching qualification, you can get a job.
Yeah.
But if you're going to go into the ESL industry, English as a second language, normally a lot of companies are looking for, as I said before, that CELTA qualification or some other TEFL qualification. Are they necessary? And the answer to that is no, because there's a lot of demand. You don't need to have a specific ESL teaching qualification to get a job if you are a native speaker.
Yeah.
It's a good idea to get one, and I would recommend that you do. I don't know how much they cost, but it's a month-long course or something like that.
I think TEFL's isn't TEFL about 2-3 months, depending on what you're...
I'm not sure how long that one is. I know the CELTA's it's about 1 month. It's a 1 month intensive course, and it costs, I don't know how much it costs now, probably €1,000. More or less, I would say. I'm not 100% sure. But with that qualification, it is easier to get a job, I would say.
But people are going to expect you to have qualifications if you're going to try looking for a job for any type of teaching.
Well, that's it. And probably another thing that you need to have, if you don't have the teaching qualification, a university degree would be fundamental, I would say, as well. So, probably that's right.
And then the other thing they'll also ask for is your criminal record. If you're going to an academy or a school. So you'll have to provide that. But yeah, I mean, the only way you're really going to be able to do much teaching without any sort of qualification whatsoever is if you do private classes, and probably if you do private classes without registering as self-employed. Because again, unless you've got other ways of getting contacts and things, you'd have to advertise yourself, and if you're advertising yourself, you're going to need to advertise yourself with qualifications. Just being English isn't or Australian or anything else isn't enough for people to say, oh yeah, okay, I'll send my kid to him to learn English. So yeah, I mean, it sort of kind of depends on what you're going to be doing and how much you're going to be doing it for. If it's a stopgap, there's always kids that just looking for classes to help with the homework, a little bit of playtime and stuff for the younger ones. But you're best to get some qualifications.
Although I do notice that in the local magazine there's 3 or 4 teachers or people offering their services there, and all they say is that they are a native speaker of English. They don't actually give any qualifications there. So obviously for those conversation classes, which a lot of people are looking for, they are just looking for somebody who's able to speak English perfectly and to be able to correct basic errors.
Yeah, definitely.
But then again, sometimes to be able to correct the errors, you have to know a little bit of the Spanish grammar as well to understand what the mistakes are.
Yeah, I mean, I had an interesting conversation yesterday with 4 of my students. It was actually quite funny. The 4 of them are 10 years old, and one of them said to me the typical double negative, I didn't do nothing. I'm like, you can't say that because it's a double negative. If you do double negative, it means positive. And he's like, what? And I was like, okay. So I then had to try and explain it in English. Then I ended up trying to explain it in Spanish. I'm saying, but of course in Spanish they use it. It's probably one of the only things I can think of in Spanish where they actually use the language probably incorrectly because it's a double negative. So I said, well, if you say I didn't do nothing, well, you must have done something because you didn't do nothing. And they're sitting me like, what? I think it was about 15 minutes explaining it to them. It was actually hilarious.
Yeah, well, the double negative is one aspect of the language. That's right. And in Spanish, they do have the double negative, so it is difficult for them to get that.
But it wasn't until I actually explained it in Spanish and English that they understood.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Spanish can often help you, and knowing a bit of the grammar in Spanish as well as obviously knowing the English grammar can certainly help you explain certain uses.
Well, that's it. Yeah, knowing English grammar is fundamental. That's also something that you would probably need to brush up on. If you decided to come here and teach English, know your grammar. That's right.
Yes.
At least all of the structures that people are going to want to learn, like the tense structures and learn what a conditional sentence is and all of those
modal
things.
Verbs and
learn what a modal verb is and an auxiliary verb and all of those things, which it's probably Greek for a lot of even native speakers. If you say what's an auxiliary verb, a lot of people probably wouldn't know.
A lot of people don't know, and that's the thing is you'll get questions like that, and unless you sort of brushed up on your grammar grammar, you're going to be sitting there looking like a bit of an idiot.
And it's difficult to wing it.
Yeah. Well, you can't, how are you going to wing it? You can't do it, can you? It's just. I mean, I think as soon as I decided to start teaching English, even though it was only as an assistant at the schools originally, the first thing I did was go straight to the internet, and I brushed up on all the grammar before I actually set foot in the school.
That's it.
And it was a good job I did as well, because you got people coming up to saying, "Sir, what's a modal verb?" And you're like, "Oh God, here we go." And then you have to explain it all. And then the next thing, someone comes up and says, "Right, okay, so I've learned the first conditional and the second conditional, but what's the zero conditional? Why is there a zero conditional?" And you're like, "Oh my God!" Yeah. And you had to explain it all. And at least if you brush up on it, you're not going to look like a complete nonce. Yeah,
well, there you go. And there's a lot of books that do explain it. So it's all out there. All of these grammar structures. And should you learn Spanish, or should you want to learn Spanish, knowing your own grammar comes in handy as well. So that would be my advice. Now, Maureen's coming from the UK. Now, unfortunately, John, Brexit has thrown a spanner in the works when it comes to getting residency here in Spain.
Oh, it's turning into a nightmare for a lot of people now.
Yeah. I'm going to read a WhatsApp that I got yesterday from a young British guy who's down here now trying to teach English. It says, "Unfortunately, until the nightmare scenario called Brexit is resolved over the next week, my NIE appointment," NIE is the residency card, "cannot take place. I guess the Spanish authorities have had to make contingency plans, and until things happen, I don't imagine I can get a NIE or another form of this until April. Sorry for the inconvenience. Essentially, until we know if there will be an extension to the withdrawal date or the UK leaves with no deal, they're suspending any bookings, which is completely understandable." So the Spanish government has decided to suspend bookings for British people trying to get their residency in order. Yeah. Now, this is all part of the Brexit shenanigans, if you like. It's all part of the Brexit circus, let's say.
Complete mess, isn't it, really? But I mean, I can understand the Spanish doing it, because once we've left the European Union, we're all going to have to change our residency cards to the TIE, which is tarjeta de identificación de extranjeros, or something like that.
It's the same card. It's still called the NIE.
Is it?
But you just change from a comunitario, which you are now, to a non-European resident like me.
People saying the opposite. We've got to do the TIE. So I mean, it's always all up in the air.
Well, I've got no idea, but all I know is that I'm not a European resident. I've got an NIE.
Yeah,
which is the same as what you've got, but yours says comunitario.
Yeah,
and you've got different rights, of course, than I've got.
Yeah, of course.
And I have to renew mine on the condition that I'm working.
Yep.
And you don't, because I think that might have changed over the years. But theoretically, the European Union gave you access to any European country from a work and living point of view.
Yeah, I mean, you still have to meet certain requirements,
certain criteria,
but
you've got freedom of movement.
We've got a lot more freedom of movement.
Well, you did have.
You would have. Yeah, we did have. Well, we have at the moment. How long we were left?
but this is what's starting to happen.
Yeah.
So I presume there's going to be a lot of people in this situation where their appointments are getting cancelled until Theresa May and her government can decide what to do regarding Brexit.
I understand why they're cancelling. I mean, it's just a complete waste of time otherwise, because people are going to go there, get their residency, and then 3 weeks later they've got to change it again. It's I mean, I completely understand why Spain are doing it, to be honest. It's fair enough.
Well, there's another article here in the paper, John, which is also related to getting residency permits here in Spain, which is foreign students in Spain left in limbo by bureaucratic backlog. Now, apparently there's a backlog of up to 6 months for people to get their residency cards renewed, and it's in particular it's affecting students that are here on short-term residency cards, the ones that have to get it done every year or every 2 years or whatever. And it says that the normal backlog that they give themselves 3 months, so that's doubled, so it's up to 6 months now. And there's been a couple of cases here of a couple of American students. One girl called Anne, who says that she's been here 3 years and the renewal has never taken this long. She can't leave the European Union. She's stuck here until this gets resolved. She's been to the Foreign Office, the Extranjería, to ask for information. Extranjería, is that the word? Yeah, it probably is. But there are also long lines. Well, welcome to Spanish bureaucracy, and I can't stand there all morning because I have classes to go to. Yeah, that's the conundrum. That's the problem that people have.
That's exactly why they've cancelled all these appointments, because
probably it's just they can't handle the backlog.
It's a complete waste of time as well. Because they're going to have to go through the whole process again.
So it's all related.
Yeah, and they've also got. The other thing that's happened as well is people, for example, like me, I've got my green A4 residency paper.
Yeah.
And then it's not actually, people call it the NIE.
Yeah.
It's not the NIE. The green paper, the A4
but you
paper,
have a number though.
Is your residency card, if you like.
Yeah.
And the NIE is your number, which is on the residency card. But the NIE is actually something else. And
it's a residency sheet of paper.
Exactly, yeah.
Or a residency card in some cases.
It depends on what you've got.
And the number starts with an X.
That's right.
But finishes with an X. Starts
the
with
number
an X.
is actually your NIE. And what people are doing is they've got these cards, and a lot of the cards, like mine, doesn't actually have permanent resident written on it. It's just residency card. It doesn't say, there's no expiration date.
Comunitario?
It says what it is. It says comunitario and everything. It says what it is, but it doesn't say. It doesn't have an expiry date. And it doesn't say permanent resident.
It doesn't have an expiry date.
No.
So you don't have to renew.
I haven't had to renew mine for 16 years.
Okay.
So basically, that's my card, and I've had to have the same A4 sheet of paper for the last 16 years. So you have to look after it.
You can imagine what that looks like now.
Yeah.
So this is my residency card here. Okay?
Yeah, you're lucky. At least you've got a card.
This is the card here. Okay. So this is it's expiring this year. So it expires later this year. So I might have to put this in to start getting this renewed now. So I've got it says Residencia de larga duración, and I'm authorized to work. So, but as I said before, I have to get this renewed every 5 years.
Yeah. Well, so what I was basically saying about the residency sheet of paper, if you like, or card, whatever you want to call it, people are actually making appointments to go to the offices to get the residency card changed to say permanent on it.
Oh, okay.
Which isn't really necessary at all, because it's all on the computers and everything else. You actually have to have the permanent part written on the paper, and of course that's people just basically panicking because of Brexit, and then you've got hundreds, maybe thousands of people asking for appointments in all over Spain to get residency pinned on your green card. And that's another reason why.
This could be affecting the whole system.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I completely understand why the Spanish have cancelled the appointments, and the reasons for it are pretty good ones, really, if you think about it.
Okay.
Yeah, right. But I can also understand the people. There's a lot of people panicking. There's not enough information.
Well, how many British people are living in Spain? 300,000.
About 300,000, I think.
So 300,000 people. Let's say 50% of those are panicking.
Yeah, at least. I think pretty much all of them are panicking in some way or another, but really panicking is probably half of them.
Well, that's it. So that's minimum 150,000 people that have flooded the system over the last few months in order to try and get this sorted.
Yeah, probably.
And that's caused just the general backlog, which is affecting everybody. And I'm supposing now that I'm going to be affected by this as well.
Yeah.
So got to get your SH1T together over there and work it out. But anyway, now Paige is another student from the US who's in Cantabria, and she waited from June to October to get her card renewed. During that time, she was unable to have private medical insurance or go to public hospital. She couldn't apply for a driver's license, and her bank threatened to close her account. So all of these bureaucratic problems are among the very few things that I don't like about studying in Spain. Yes, the bureaucracy. We have spoken about it before, and we can speak about it again ad nauseum, because it is one of the worst things about coming to this country. if you have to go through. In fact, some people, I mean, it creates tension, it creates stress having to do bureaucratic things in this country, not only for people like us who don't come from here, but also for Spanish people as well. I know my girlfriend, whenever she has to get a passport renewed or anything like that, it's like, well, panic stations, because you know, even to get a simple thing like a passport renewed, you have to get an appointment.
You have to get an appointment. Yeah, you need an appointment beforehand. You can't just rock up.
No.
Expect them to do it.
Well, I can understand that, but sometimes the appointments are 6 months down the track. You know? So you've got to plan. You've got to plan.
Yeah.
I mean,
but it's for everything. My wife's going through a situation at the moment where family matter. She's having to go through a whole load of paperwork and bureaucratic nonsense, and she's been given 6 months. Basically, by law, you've got 6 months for her to sort out the problem she's going through, and it's so many different bits of papers, so many different offices she's got to go to, so many different people she's got to see, and she's using a lawyer to get it all done as well. I mean, none of it's serious stuff like it's got to be done because we're going on holiday or we're travelling or anything like that. But it's a legal requirement to have it done within a certain period of time. Yeah. And I mean, she's getting stressed with it, and you know, she's obviously quite tuned into what needs to be done here. It's just crazy.
Well, she understands all of the paperwork, which is fundamental as well. So a lot of the documents that you get from the bureaucracy, you can't understand them, even if you read Spanish. The language they use is just it's not clear. Nothing's clear. It's done deliberately.
I can do that in English as well. I mean, I can remember
legal
and
documents,
anything legal in the UK, and they start using language just to try and confuse everyone. I think
it is. But anyway, that's the bureaucratic nightmare. So hopefully this gets sorted out before the middle of the year when I have to go through the process. I don't want to be...
Start looking for an appointment now.
I don't want to be stuck in limbo. Yeah, well, I'll speak to my gestor. That's what I would recommend to these two ladies here. Put it in the hands of somebody. See if they can do it.
Worth the money.
Well, you don't want to be standing in... That's what this lady says here. She can't stand in a queue all morning and lose class time. I mean, it's the same when you're earning money, you know, especially like us that earn by the hour. You can't be standing in a queue. At least not for a few days in a row. And the queue system is good in theory, but when the doors open, as I have mentioned in another podcast, the queue disappears, and it's everyone
for himself. It's like, you know, take an umbrella with you. Sort of barge people out of the way.
That's right. Yeah,
you have to be a bit careful with somebody. I mean, that happened to me when I had to go to the INEM, which is the dole office, Social Security. Right. I had to go there. When was it? When I was made redundant, I had to go and basically let them know. And I was working a week later, but when I went there, I just couldn't believe the chaos. Massive queue outside the building before the doors opened, and then at the beginning it looked quite good. You know, the doors opened and then people started going in gradually, and wasn't too bad, quite organised. And then all of a sudden you got one person jumps a queue, and then all of a sudden it was a free for all, and everyone was just like pushing people out of the way just to get through the doors. It was absolutely nuts. Crazy.
Yeah, it's complicated. It's complicated here. The standing in the lines, as they say, in the lines. Now, got another comment here, John, from a person here called Mega Websters. He says that he's been enjoying the videos. He's been negotiating a job in the finance sector in Madrid. He finally got an offer on a local package and gross salary offered that equates to 75% of his London salary at today's exchange rate for the same type of job. I believe I have some room for negotiation, but the question is, does 75% realistically equate to the same standard of living over there? Any advice is much appreciated. John, 75% of your London salary here. Now, I don't know what the London salary is. We don't have anything to go by here. But if we were to put on the table a comfortable salary to live in Madrid, and hopefully it's what this person has negotiated, would be a minimum of, what do you think, to live?
Well, first of all, where? If you're going to be in the centre, you're going to want a fair bit more than if you're happy to live in the suburbs.
Well, let's just say you're going to be living in the centre of Madrid, right, in a decent area. I mean, it doesn't have to be the best area, but living somewhere in the centre of Madrid inside the M30, where you're going to be paying a minimum of €1,000 a month for rent.
Yeah, minimum of €1,000 a month for rent.
To live on your own.
Yeah, to live on your own. Yeah.
Okay.
So you're talking rent, €1,000 plus expenses. And I'd say minimum. I'd go to 1,200 if you're going to live in a decent area in Madrid on your own. Plus expenses. Expensive, obviously, just all depends on how big the place is and everything. But give yourself enough money for the gas, electricity, water.
Okay, yeah. So you got your gas, electricity, your water, your internet connection, your mobile telephone. Depending on what contract you sign, you've also got the council tax, the IBI, and the basura, which I always thought should have been included in the rent, but apparently not so much anymore. Okay. That's been done separately. So keep those things in mind as well. But I don't know. I mean, it all depends on what your London salary is. But I think that if you're going to be able to clear, obviously he's talking about the finance sector, so I'm going to go high with this. So if you're on, 3, maybe more, I'd probably put 3 to live comfortably. Probably
3,000 to live comfortably in the centre. Yeah, I think so. I mean, you got to remember, compared to London, going out, transport, eating out. All of those things are a lot cheaper in Madrid than they are in London.
Yeah. But you can spend money if you want.
You can certainly spend money if you want to, and especially depending on where you choose to live.
Yeah.
I mean, you try and find somewhere reasonable, anywhere near Retiro, for example, or even near Sol and Plaza Mayor, and anywhere in the actual centre, and you're either going to get a very basic apartment or flat, which is going to cost you a bomb, or you're going to be paying through the nose.
I know people. I know people that share in that area there near the Retiro. I think they're paying $550 a month for shared accommodation.
4 of them sharing.
3. Yeah, I think 3. Yeah. I think 3. And there was even one girl was telling me that the landlord has decided to turn a walk-in wardrobe into a room as well.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on here at the moment. Unfortunately, for Mega Webster's, Madrid's going through this rent crisis at the moment, where the Airbnb, as we spoke about last week, is affecting rental accommodations. But let's say 3,000. I mean, your transport costs to move around the centre of Madrid, I think it's cheap. About €56 a month.
Yeah, it's about 56, €60 a month for the Bono Transporte.
That's right.
I mean, and that covers your metro, your buses, and I think the trains
that covers
within a certain area.
Right.
So I mean, that's dirt cheap. I mean, moving around Madrid is really cheap.
Yeah.
A lot cheaper than London.
And it's quite easy to get around Madrid now. You've got a lot of car-to-go sharing systems. You've got electric scooters as well, which is a bit controversial at the moment, John.
Yep.
You can zip around the town on an electric scooter. Which were banned there for a while because people are not really used to the electric scooters, John.
No, not at all. I mean, we've just been delivered 200 electric scooters in Rivas.
So the electric scooters have finally made it into Rivas.
Yes, with a bang. It's a little bit controversial because there's a lot of teenagers that are just picking up these electric scooters and flying all over the place without really taking a lot of care. They're shooting across roads. They haven't got any helmets on. They actually should be with an adult. A lot of the younger ones as well. And there's been some very close calls with scooters around them. A lot of complaints.
Yeah, we have as well. So that's the topic of electric scooters. Be careful with those. But just going back to the topic there, 75% of your London salary, presuming that it's around the 45, 50,000 euro mark per year, I think you would be able to live quite comfortably.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean,
I had a friend here a couple of years ago who was on 60, and he was living like a king, basically.
Yeah, well, you would do with that much, I think.
That's it.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, most of it depends on how much you're going to be forking out on the apartment, really, in the flat first. Once you've got that sorted and you know how much you're going to be paying on that, the rest of it is all going to be, well, pretty much all of it's going to be cheaper than what you'd have in London. So.
Yeah, that's it. So Madrid's still a fair bit cheaper than London. But what I have noticed, John, is that the prices are on their way up.
Definitely, yeah. The prices have been increasing a lot, but everywhere. From rents to restaurants, everything's increasing.
Spain was sort of went through a low-cost model there during the crisis. Obviously, the prices of everything went down, or that became more in tune with what was happening. But I have noticed that a lot of the places that are opening up now are going back to the pre-crisis prices, especially from restaurant points of view, and Rivas especially. It's not cheap here.
No, but I think a lot of that's to do with the rent as well, because the rent's just been going up and up and up.
And a lack of competition.
Never been cheap either.
Lack of competition, do you think?
The restaurants have got competition with each other now, because there's quite a lot have opened up, but probably not enough. And then, of course, on top of that, if they're paying through the nose for really high rents on the buildings that they're using, I mean, that obviously all filters down to the customer, so the prices all go up. And I think we've got that problem. We're going to have that problem for a good couple of years at least, I think. Yeah, I've noticed with a couple of those new restaurants that have opened up here, I mean, the prices are they don't seem to be really in touch. Maybe it's people's salaries have increased, but you know, in general, salaries are still quite low for the majority of people, and you know, it is a bit of an effort to be going to these places, you know, and socialising in some of these more expensive restaurants. Yeah, especially if you've got family. I mean, if you're single, or if you're you know, just going out with your other half, you know, it's not too bad. But you got kids, to go out with 4 kids now, you're looking at spending, I'd say, minimum 60, going up to 100 euros for one meal.
That's it.
Definitely closer to the 100 euro mark, I think, with 4 children, with a family of 4. And of course, if a lot of people are still earning only 1,000 and 1,200 euros a month, that's a big chunk of money just to go out for dinner one day in a month. Yeah.
Well, that's probably something that I would recommend, is that you have a look what the average salary is in Madrid. And if the average salary in Madrid, probably what's 30,000 euros a year.
I'd say it's less than that, to be honest. The average.
I don't know what the average is. I mean, you probably have to have a look, but probably. I mean, realistically, the people that I talk to, a lot of people are only earning 1,500. That, you know, they consider that to be a good salary. Yeah. And they seem to be able to live. Yep. Obviously, they've got the family support. So, you know, check out and see what the average salaries are in Madrid, and what the average salaries are for your sector, and that should give you an idea. But, you know, anything over 45, you're going to be living fairly comfortably. Yeah. And if you are, you know, earning big money in London and you're here on 75% of that, then you're going to, you know, have a fantastic quality of life. That's it. Yeah. You'll be living it up. That's right. You'll be living it up. Now, we got another comment here from Andres, who's planning to move to Madrid from LA, and he wants to pick our brain. He says, you're looking for a neighbourhood middle upper class between Fuenlabrada and the city. Now, for those that don't know Madrid well, Fuenlabrada is in the south of Madrid, probably about 20 kilometres south, would it be?
Maybe not quite that much, I'm not sure. But
it's on the road to Toledo. Yeah. And it's a working class area.
Working class area, definitely, yeah. I used to work there quite a lot.
Did you?
Yeah. I had a gym there.
Okay. And it's well connected to the city. I mean, you've got Cercanías trains, you've got light rail, you've got metro, I think there now. Obviously, buses coming into the city. But Andres wants to know where to live, not necessarily in Fuenlabrada. So he's talking about El Bercial, which I think is in Getafe, Legazpi, which is in the south of Madrid, Pacifico, and other places like this. Budget is 1,000 to 1,400 euros a month. Now, we were discussing this before, John, and I think we came to the conclusion that some of the best areas in that, for the areas that he's looking at, just behind Atocha, right?
Yeah, if you just go down a bit down the road from Atocha down towards the M30, they've got a fairly big area which is nice and new, very open space as well, which is something I like without being too claustrophobic.
There's a lot of parks in that area.
A lot of parks, and you've got close access to the railway. You've got close access to metro, even by car. If you've got somewhere to park, which is the first thing, even by car you can get out onto the motorways and everything fairly easy as well. Although obviously depending on when you've got to drive, you hit the rush hour, it might not necessarily be a good idea. But I think that area is a decent area, fairly new housing, and might be a good place to start looking. Yeah,
that area as well. It was a former industrial area that they've converted into. They've changed the area, and it's all nice new flats and lots of open spaces, lots of sort of the new Madrid design, let's say. It's also an area there closer to Legazpi as well, which is similar, a former industrial area where all of the warehouses have been had flats built where they were before, close to metro services, parks, schools, all of those things there, and you can get to Fuenlabrada really, really easily because you're on the southern edges of the city. So you can get anywhere south fairly easily from there. And you're also close to the other parts of Madrid as well, because remember, Madrid is very compact.
It's not as big as people think it is.
No, it's a very compact city.
It's nowhere near the size of London.
No, it's big when you start to look at all of the places that have grown around it. So, I mean, it can go on and on and on and on. But the centre of Madrid, let's say from the north Plaza Castilla, let's say, to the south Legazpi, it's only
inside the M30, basically.
Well, it's inside the M30, that's right. So you can get anywhere from there relatively easily. Whether you choose to drive or take a bus or whatever, you've got fantastic public transport options there.
Metro's really good. If you can use the metro, I'd definitely suggest using that. It's fast, it's clean. It's a good system compared to London Underground, which is obviously old, and we're using old tunnels still. It's a different experience. I actually like the London Underground. I love it, but I mean, it's brand new here. Everything's new. So.
And the other thing that he mentions there is that maybe in some of these places like Getafe is also one of these towns just on the outskirts of Madrid as well. And you can find pockets in these towns where there are nice houses, nice areas, nice parks, and so forth. But the majority of the living in these places is flats, quite urban.
Yeah, there's a lot of flats. I mean, you can go down streets where it's just flats everywhere you look. There aren't any houses. It's all flats.
That's right.
It depends what you're looking for.
That's right. And as far as Madrid goes, I mean, he mentions here, he says, better living in the north. I mean, the north of Madrid and the south of Madrid, there's poles apart, basically.
I think we'll probably end up with a lot of comments on this from the Spaniards that are listening to us. I'm sure we'll have quite a lot of comments of their opinions on where is the best place to live in Madrid. So if any of them want to comment, I think that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, good idea. If you're from Madrid, the best areas in Madrid. Keep the viewers informed, because there are people looking to come and live here for work purposes or whatever, and they do want to know which are the best areas. So if you can find a good place inside that M30 ring, there are lots and lots of nice places in that area there. That doesn't necessarily need to be very expensive, as we said. Just behind the Tocha, Legazpi, around those areas there. Embajadores, there's a nice area there as well, where the flats are relatively new. Lots of families moved into those areas as well. So, I mean, there's lots of options available, I think.
Yeah, plenty of options.
Lots of options. All right, good. Now we'll start to wrap this podcast up here. We had a bit of a technical problem, so I don't know how many minutes long it is in the end, but we'll see. Thanks for your participation again, John.
No problem.
Questions or comments, please leave them in the section below. We'll see you in the podcast next week, or you can listen to us on all of the podcast platforms, as I have said before. So, hasta luego.